All right, here we go. Hey, Lab Coat Agents, it's Tristan and Nick with you. Today we've got a pretty special guest. We've known Jay for, 2 years, right?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, and so we've got Jay Thompson today, and thanks, Jay. I appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you're not busy at all.
Nope, got nothing else to do.
I appreciate you being on. And let's just get started. Nick, shoot it, man.
Oh, Jay, what's up? We're happy to have you here. First,
I'm glad to be here.
Start off first, I feel like a lot of people don't really know much about you. They don't know your background. I mean, I know some of your background. I know that you used to be a broker, but why don't you talk a little bit about, before you went to Zillow, what you did in the real estate world as an agent and a broker owner?
Sure. So I started at Zillow just over 5 years ago. My 5-year anniversary was just a few weeks ago. Prior to that, let me back up a little bit further. I got my real estate license in Arizona in 2004, I want to say. Yeah, 2004, got my real estate license. I had been in the semiconductor manufacturing industry for decades, and which is a brutal business. It's just super cutthroat. And I was in human resources for the last 3 years of that. And all I did for the last 3 years of that was close down factories and lay people off. And to be honest, it sucked. I personally exited over 3,300 people, meaning I had 3,300 people in my office where I had to say, you're getting laid off. Here's your severance package. Here's a box to pack your stuff. Have a good life. It was horrible. And knowing the whole time that once that we got through all that, the human resources department would get laid off. And I'll make a long story short, there was a rumor coming out that the severance package was going to get cut. So I said, you know what, if the severance package is going to get cut, and I was due to get a big severance package. If the severance package is going to get cut, I want to get my piece of it. So I went to my boss and I said, if the rumor's true, let me out of here. He said, go, get out, get your full severance package. So I got a nice severance package, and I looked at my wife and I said, what are we going to do? I had zero desire to do anything with corporate real estate or corporate life at that point. So we had some friends that were in real estate, and we thought, you know what, we've got a couple of years to pay after taxes here. We can give this thing a go. So I got licensed. A few months later, my wife got licensed. And the intent from day one, in Arizona, you have to have your sales license for 3 years before you can sit for your broker's exam. But the intent from day one was when that 3-year period came up, one of us would get our broker's license and we'd open our own independent brokerage. So that's exactly what we did. So we opened cleverly named Thompson's Realty in 2007 or 8. And originally it was just going to be me and my wife and a couple of friends of ours. That was the plan, right? Just a small little independent brokerage, driven basically by the leads that I was generating through my blog.
I want to talk about your blog next, so don't get too much into it.
We'll get into that. So blog generated a bunch of leads. Literally within hours of me putting on the blog that Thompson's Realty was open for business, I had agents contact me and asking how they could join our brokerage. So I looked at my wife. I'm like, okay, this wasn't the plan 30 minutes ago. Are we gonna hire more? Are we gonna hire agents? And we said, sure, let's hire 5. And when we got to 5 agents, I said, I'm never going to have more than 5 agents. And then when we got to 10 agents, I said, I'm never going to have more than 10. And then when we got to 20, I said the same thing. And the next thing I know, we have 33 agents. And it worked really, really well. The agents were awesome. Still friends with most of them. But just over 5 years ago, Zillow approached me about working with them. And I'd known a lot.
Let's back up. I want to back up a little bit because I just want to back up a little bit. Before that happened, I want to talk about your blog, Phoenix Real Estate Guy.
Yep.
Because I know it was like one of the biggest blogs in Phoenix, right? So tell us how that started and what that did for your business.
It was crazy what that did for my business. I've always been someone that likes to write. I'm just one of those weirdos that likes to write. Some people do, some people hate it. I enjoy it. So I had a personal blog, kind of the typical standard diary type of blog for a couple of years. So as soon as I got into real estate, this was in 2004. So I thought the internet wasn't a big deal in real estate back then. Zillow didn't launch till 2006. Realtor.com was around, but there weren't a lot of real estate blogs. And I just thought, you know what? I have this desire and this need basically to write and generate content. So why don't I try this? See if I can take this newfound real estate business and do something with it in a blog format and originally I thought, will it generate leads? I don't know. Let's just see what it'll do. So I started writing on Phoenix Real Estate Guy in 2004, I think. Yeah. Not long after I got licensed. And nothing really happened with it, to be honest. I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of floor time at my Century 21 brokerage, working on the blog, writing content. And I realized as I was going through kind of self-teaching myself SEO, I realized that I needed to step up the content generation in order to generate any leads. And so that's what I did. I said, okay, we're going to give this 6 months, and I'm going to try to write something 5 times a week. And I did that, and magically the phone started to ring. People started to call. They started to say, hey, we found you on your blog. Most of the contacts in the blog came through the IDX search, the home search. And leads started to roll in. I was like, holy cow, it works. It was not easy. Writing for Phoenix Real Estate Guy was a full-time job. That's the only prospecting I did. I didn't door knock, didn't cold call, no postcards, nothing. That was my prospecting, was content on Phoenix Real Estate Guy.
And what year was that again?
2005 or 6 is when it started to really take off. It took about a year before after launch to really start generating enough leads to make it worthwhile. I was fortunate that I partnered with my wife because she did the actual real estate while I did the rainmaking through the blog, and it just started to work. That blog led to so many opportunities. It's kind of like Facebook groups now, or Facebook now. You couldn't even get an adult couldn't get on Facebook back then. It was just a college thing. But I started getting speaking opportunities. I started meeting people inside the industry, and it just worked really, really well. And it got to the point right about the time that I was going to get my broker's license. This was in 2007, where we hit a tipping point, and I was literally just throwing leads away, doing nothing with them. A lead would come in, and I would cherry pick, right, based on listing price or activity. I mean, I had drip campaigns set up and all that kind of stuff, but I literally threw a ton of leads away. And that's when my wife and I said, well, why don't we just do this brokerage thing, and so we can share our leads with some agents and get more out of them. So that's what we did. I launched Thompson's Realty, and the next thing you know, a couple years later, we've got 30-ish agents distributing leads from our blog to them. And it worked great. But people need to understand, I think blogging can still work.
I was just going to ask you, do you think that, that exact question, do you think that there's still like space on the internet for that,
I do. It's never been easy. There's no doubt that I had the advantage a little bit of for lack of better terms, having a little bit of a first adopter advantage. My blog wasn't the first real estate blog by any stretch of the imagination, but at the time that it launched, God, you really had to dig to find a real estate blog. There was maybe 20, 30, maybe 50 across the country. Most of us knew each other. So that helped. We knew each other personally. We would link back and forth to each other, not in some plot to scam Google, but just because we naturally linked to each other because we liked what each other were doing. And that helped. I think blogging can still be successful, but people have to understand you've got to have a plan. You've got to create content that people want, and you've got to create content that other people will link to, because backlinks are still one of the key search engine factors. And no web presence. I don't care whether you blog or Facebook or have a Zillow profile or Realtor.com profile, whatever your web strategy is, that's not successful if nobody sees it, right? So you can blog all day long. If you're blogging to an audience of 2, you're never going to get any business. So you've got to do some fundamental SEO, and fundamental SEO includes backlinks, which means you've got to write engaging content that will get backlinks, or otherwise you just won't rise up enough in Google. Now, the other option, which I did not explore with my blog, was not worrying about organic SEO, but you can do pay-per-click. I never did that. I never spent a dime on pay-per-click. Today, if I was getting into real estate blogging right now, I would do pay-per-click to give my blog a jump start while I got those backlinks. There's no question that it's harder today to get backlinks and get good search engine rankings than it was 10 years ago when I started my blog. For one thing, when I started my blog, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter. Okay, so people had less places to go to on the internet, so it made it easier for a blog to be found. I think that can be combated today with good quality, high grade content, which is not an easy thing to produce. And it's not for everybody, but there's no one marketing / branding / advertising program that fits everybody. Zillow doesn't fit everybody. Realtor.com doesn't fit everybody. Door knocking doesn't fit everybody. Blogging doesn't fit everybody. But if you generate really good content, you can still be successful with blogging.
So how did the shift happen from you doing this to you getting hired by Zillow? I mean, what was the process?
It's an interesting story. Zillow hired the CEO of my MLS at the time. His name is Bob Bemis. So the CEO of the Arizona Regional MLS was hired by Zillow. So me being a blogger, I did an interview with our outgoing MLS CEO, and I'm not a journalist, right? I'm just a wannabe writer. So I did this interview with the MLS CEO, and it's just really basic stuff. You know, what are you going to do at Zillow? Who's going to take your place at Armless? Why are you going? You know, why move from Phoenix to Seattle? Blah blah blah. So I did this piece on the blog, and in the past, I wrote a lot about Zillow on my blog because my blog was not just restricted to local, hyper-local real estate. I did a lot of discussion about the real estate industry on the blog, mostly because it interested me. And I found, oddly enough, readers were interested in it as well. So I wrote a lot about Zillow in the past from the day they launched upwards. So I met a lot of people from Zillow through the blog. And Spencer Raskoff, this Zillow CEO, every time I would write an article about Zillow, whether it was positive, not negative, it's not the right. I've always been a supporter of syndicating listings. So anyway, Spencer would always send me a note anytime I wrote something. Thanks for the article on Phoenix Real Estate Guy. I enjoyed reading it. So I wrote this article about Bob, our MLS CEO, leaving, and I never heard from Spencer, which I didn't care. That's not why I wrote it. I didn't expect the CEO of a company to thank me for writing an article, but probably maybe 2 months, 6-8 weeks after that article, I got a message from Spencer, a direct message on Twitter, and he goes, I feel bad because I forgot to thank you for the article about Bob joining Zillow. I sent him a message back. I said, don't worry about it. Thanks. I appreciate it, Spencer, but you don't have to thank me every time. And then he responded back. He said, you should come up to Seattle and join the fun. And I looked at my wife and I said, what does that mean? I should come to Seattle and join the fun.
Did he just offer me a
I was like, this is weird. So I sent him something back that said don't tempt me, with a little smiley face. And literally a few minutes later, the phone rang, and it was Spencer's admin, and she said, Spencer would like to bring you up to Seattle to talk, just to talk. Can you do that? And I look at my wife again. She's like, why not? Go for it. So I said, sure, when? And she goes, how about Monday? And this was like on a Wednesday. I'm like, you want me to come up to Seattle in 5 days? I'm like, okay, well, why not? She goes, we'll pay for it. Just come talk to Spencer. So I walk in, I fly up to Seattle. And I've been to Seattle before because my dad lives in a suburb of Seattle. So I was used to the area. I walk into Zillow and I was blown away by the office space, as I still am today, 5 years later. And I'm standing in the lobby and somebody from Human Resources walks out and goes, here's your schedule, and hands me a piece of paper. And I look at it and there's like 10 people on it, from Spencer to VPs to one of the co-founders of Zillow. It's an interview schedule. And I'm like, okay, now I'm apparently interviewing for a job that I know nothing about and I've done zero preparation for. This should be interesting. And it was. They gave me a tour of the facility. I'm a nerd at heart. I'm a big nerd at heart. I'm a web guy. And so seeing these floors of people all coding and developing and working on the website, and just the energy that was here, I fell in love with it. And a few weeks later, Zillow made me an offer. We went back and forth a couple times, negotiating terms, not very much because it was a great offer. And we came to agreement. And I'm like, well, for me personally, it worked out. It was perfect. Like I said, my dad lives in the Seattle area. He's not getting any younger. Both my kids at the time my youngest was just about to graduate from high school and go off to college. My wife is a Phoenix native, and she was sick and tired of the heat in Phoenix. She was ready to get out. it was like a perfect storm where all this stuff just came together and it worked out. So we thought, you know what? Let's do it. What the heck? Let's just try it. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? So I accepted the offer, and the original plan was that my wife would stay in Phoenix and continue to run the brokerage because I was going to travel a lot, and I'd go down for weekends, or she'd come up to Seattle, or I'd stop by Phoenix on my way to wherever. And that worked for about 6 months, and to be honest, it sucked. I adore my wife, and for whatever reason, she adores me. And it was like living in a long distance relationship, and it was awful. So we talked about it. We said, okay, this isn't going to work. This, you in Phoenix, me in Seattle, it blows. So we talked about, well, we can shut the brokerage down, we can sell it, we can merge it. Let's figure out what to do with it. And I swear, to follow up with this whole perfect timing, perfect storm thing, about a week after my wife and I made the decision to do something with the brokerage, we didn't know what, I was approached by Glenn Sanford with eXp Realty, who I'd known for a long time. And the eXp model really fit my brokerage model really well because they're virtual. They have no brick and mortar office space. My brokerage had no brick and mortar office space. And I was at some event, I don't remember which one it was, and Glenn Sanford walked up to me and he goes, have you ever thought about merging your brokerage with somebody else? And I said, wow, it's like, were you in my living room when my wife and I were having this conversation last week? And so we started talking, and we wound up merging our brokerage with eXp, which was awesome. It was good for our agents. Some of our agents left immediately, as any brokerage change, right? Anytime you change franchises, change brokerage models, change splits, whatever it might be, some of the agents will love it, some of the agents won't. Many of the agents left, but some of them stuck with eXp. Some of them are still with eXp. But that merging Thompson's Realty with eXp basically I was the broker of Thompson's Realty, which I couldn't do as a Zillow employee. So as soon as I got hired by Zillow, my wife got her broker's license, and she became the designated broker of Thompson's Realty. And then when we merged with eXp, that took all the broker stuff off her plate. So no more contract reviews, no more cutting checks for property management, none of that broker stuff. She didn't have to do it anymore. She became a team leader with eXp over some very experienced agents that, to be honest, don't really need a team leader. She's still an eXp team leader. We still have, I had no idea. Yeah, I want to say we still have 4 or 5 agents that are underneath her. To be honest, she doesn't do a whole lot with them because she's not the broker. They're super experienced. They don't really need a team leader. So she sits in Seattle as a team leader for 4 or 5 agents with eXp Realty. My broker's license is still active. I keep it active for lots of reasons, and I hang it with eXp. So technically, eXp is my broker, although I haven't sold a house since I started working at Zillow 5 years ago. So that's the story.
Well, we just answered a lot of questions that I have, so now we can jump in to a few other questions.
Jay, the reason we started...
Well, I was going to say, I wanted people to get to know Jay a little bit. I feel like a lot of people don't, especially, I've known Jay on Facebook for the last 5 or so years. I remember when you got the job at Zillow, and I remember you had that blog, and, you sold your blog, and that was pretty sweet. And that's why I was interested in what you thought about whether or not agents could still blog and make a living at it. I mean, it's harder with all the noise on the internet these days, but but anyway, let's just let Tristan. Do you have any specific questions? Because we obviously want to talk about Zillow too.
Hey, the reason we started with your background was because you're in an interesting position, right? Mm-hmm. You get a lot of love, but at the same time, you get a lot of hate too, right?
Yep.
And so we really wanted to start with that so that people can really see that, you were an agent once, right? Your wife is still working as in the real estate world, and I mean, you're literally one of us still.
I am.
People to really understand that first before they throw out whatever it is they throw out directly.
I think it's important to know, because I've been challenged before many times in Facebook groups with people that don't know my background. I've gotten comments like, well, what the hell do you know about selling a house? You've never sold a brick. Comments like that, when I'm like, dude, I've sold hundreds and hundreds of homes. My agents have sold hundreds of homes. I have not forgotten for a moment what it's like to be a real estate agent or broker and live on 100% commission income with no benefits and wake up every day unemployed. I get it. I know what it's like. I've been there, and I haven't forgotten.
So real quick, Jay, what is your role at Zillow right now? We didn't cover that. So what is your?
That's a great question. Really, it's primarily two things. One is what you see from me in the social space, to kind of act, for lack of a better term, act as a liaison between the broker agent community and Zillow. That's part of it. What you don't see is the other part, which is really, if you could walk around the halls of Zillow for 5 minutes, you would quickly, one thing would strike you immediately, how young our workforce is. We have a super young workforce. I'm 56 years old, and I'm probably one of the 3 oldest Zillow employees by a mile.
Wow.
I am significantly older than, I think Spencer just turned 40, 41. There's a couple of people here that are as old as me, but not very many. So anyway, we have a really young workforce. And as such, they don't have a whole lot of life experiences. And that includes buying or selling a home, or even working with talking to a real estate agent. And here's the example I use. We have a brilliant team of developers, right, that work on apps for phones, a Premier Agent app, for example, an app designed to help agents be more efficient. These guys and gals are amazing and can literally code anything. They can make an app do anything, but they need to know what to make it do. And they need to understand how brokers and agents think and what brokers and agents want. So I spend a lot of time internally helping Zillow employees and groups understand what it is that brokers and agents need from us. So that, for me, is one of the most rewarding parts of my job, because, again, I'm a nerd at heart. And when a developer goes, look what we can make the app do. Isn't this cool? Look at the new app. Isn't it awesome? And I go, yeah, it's really cool. It's very, very cool, but it won't do a darn thing for brokers and agents. Now, if you can make it do this or that, and then they'll go back and do their thing, and it's fun. I love it. But two primary things: act as a liaison or interface between the agent community and Zillow, and then internally help Zillow understand what brokers and agents need.
All right. Well, look, let's get into it. Most of the agents we talk to right now are really upset about the whole Zillow instant offers thing, right?
Yep.
Some of them understand how it works. Some of them don't. Some of them are just angry because it's Zillow, and some of them don't even care, right? Can you explain what Zillow wants to do with this new product? What is behind it?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I don't know all the answers, but I'll tell you what I do know. First, it's important to understand it's a test, okay? And that's not just semantics. Somebody out there is rolling their eyes going, it's a test. It's going to be a nationwide product. You know what? We don't know that. We test a ridiculous amount of material. We are blessed to have insane traffic numbers, so we can do A/B testing, where you present one page to one audience and you present another page to another audience. That's an A/B test. It's a fundamental way to test web pages. We do hundreds of A/B. We run hundreds of A/B tests at any given moment in time. And these tests can be something as simple as, what if we change the color of this button that says contact an agent from blue to green? Will that increase the number of people that click on it? What if we move the button from here to here, or to here, or to here, or to here? Where we place the button on the screen, language, words, colors, layout, lots and lots of things can be tested that way. And we also test products or potential products, like an instant offer type of thing. We tested everything that Zillow's ever done, really, has been tested before launch. Reviews, our advertising programs, co-marketing, all the big features that we have, we test the heck out of these things because we need to make sure they work. So I don't know the genesis of the instant offer test, but here's what I do know. There are companies out there that are already offering very similar products to an instant offer type of thing, right? You've got Open Door, Knock, OfferPad. There's a bunch of them. And VCs, the venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, have funded these companies to the tune of over $1 billion, billion with a B. Okay, and VCs are pretty smart about where they put their money. They're generally not going to sink $1 billion into something that they don't think is going to work or that they don't think is viable. So clearly, Silicon Valley investors feel that this instant offer type of service has some level of interest with some subset of sellers, enough to dump money in these guys' laps. So there's that. This is already happening. This is part of real estate. It may not be in your market yet. Open Door Last I knew was in Phoenix, Vegas, Dallas, maybe somewhere else. Knock is not everywhere. But the point being, this is not a brand new idea. Okay, Zillow didn't come up with the idea of instant offers. It's already being done. It's already being funded by VCs. So there's that. Here's another thing. We, or any internet or marketing or media company, whatever you want to call it, advertising company that primarily generates contacts for agents, listing contacts, listing leads. I really, really personally hate the word lead. It seems so impersonal. These are human beings, right? But I don't know what else to call them. Contacts is less icky than leads, but call it what it is. It's a listing lead. Listing leads are the gold. That's what everybody wants, right? And they're really, really hard to get. The internet lends itself to buyers, right? It's a visual thing. Buyers can look at homes on the internet. They can scroll through photos, they can read listing descriptions, and they can click a button and contact an agent. It's much, much more difficult to get a listing contact. So that's kind of the gold thing. That's what we know. One thing we don't have to test, because we poll, also we do surveys, and we know agents that advertise with us want contacts from sellers. That's not, I think everybody knows that. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. So that's a component of this instant offer test, is can we generate seller contacts through it? We think we can. We don't know. That's why we test it. So a couple of things that are important to know. One, that this is not some new freaky thing. The other, and I get though why agents are scared about it, and I think it's mostly just misinformation and misunderstanding. It's already happening. It's happening by very well-funded companies that, to be perfectly honest, don't give a crap about the real estate agent. We do give a crap about the real estate agent. Regardless of what somebody thinks, and we can talk about Zillow eliminating agents later if you want to. We don't want to eliminate agents. The last thing we want to do is eliminate our customers. We want to service our advertising agents. We also want to service the consumer. And here's something that's really important for people to understand. And I get grief from agents when I talk about this, but the consumer is our primary focus. The real estate buyer, home buyer, or home seller is our primary focus. And people go, what do you mean that's your focus? We're the ones that pay you. Why aren't you focused on the agent? Well, it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg dilemma, right? Which came first? You can't sell advertising to agents if you don't have an audience, right? So you've got to build the audience, because without an audience, you got no advertising. You're advertising to a party of two. You need to get in front of tens of thousands of people. So we have to build a big consumer audience, and we're very good at doing that because we're focused primarily on the consumer. That doesn't mean that we don't focus and spend a ridiculous amount of time and money on agents. Of course we do. We really have two, for lack of a better word, masters, right? And those masters are the real estate home shopper and the real estate agent. And it's not easy to serve two masters, but most businesses, if you think about it, really do have more than one type of customer, right? Look at a brokerage, okay? The Keller Williams brokerage, Remax, whatever, it doesn't matter. They have to meet the needs of the real estate consumer. They have to meet the needs of their agents. They have to meet the needs of the people that support the agents. Any business really has to meet the needs of multiple audiences. So our two big audiences are the consumer and the agent, specifically the agent that advertises with us. So we know that there's some subset of sellers out there that want this instant offer. We don't know how big that audience is. Don't think it's very big. And let's back up a little bit and talk about what an instant offer is and why in the world would any seller want something like that. Let's face it. I said this. I can't remember if it was an LCA or some other group. I said at one point, just in the last week or two, that selling a home is a hassle. And somebody lit me up and they said, this isn't a hassle. We make it easy for people to sell their homes. You're banging on agents when you say selling a home is a hassle. I'm sorry, selling a home is a hassle, right? You got to keep it clean. You got to have strangers walking around in your house, opening your medicine cabinet, stealing your prescription drugs, looking in your, opening your kitchen drawers, doing what potential buyers do in a home. Selling a home is a hassle. I don't care how good an agent you are. It's a pain as a seller to sell a home.
I think I would have to agree with you in that.
Yeah, I really, if any agent really honestly thinks about it, from the seller's perspective, it's a pain in the butt to sell a home. Plus, an agent can't and shouldn't go in and say, you know what, I can have your home sold on June 15th. We'll close, and you'll get this much money. You don't know. You have to put it on the open market. You have to let the open market play out. There are investors, and there have always been wholesalers and investors buying homes long before I got into real estate. They've always done it. So through the instant offer test, we're allowing investors to make an offer on a home, sight unseen, and we're also looping in a real estate agent to provide a CMA. I was just literally on a podcast 30 minutes ago before I joined this one with Veronica Figueroa, who is one of our premier agent in Orlando that's part of the instant offer test. And while we were on the podcast, she got a notification. Our concierge service tried to connect her to one of the instant offer sellers who wants her to send over the listing paperwork. Okay. So this thing is working on some level. It's very small. First of all, the test is less than 2 weeks old. We're still gathering lots of data. It's only in 2 markets, and it's not even in all of Orlando or Las Vegas yet. So that's kind of the genesis of it. That was a long-winded answer, and I apologize for that. Well, it's really twofold. It's the consumer need and the agent need. Go ahead.
The question that I have about instant offers is, I have two opinions on it. Well, one is I feel like it's not going to work in every market. I mean, nothing works.
I don't think it will either.
The reason why I don't think it's going to work in my market or Tristan's market or any major like metropolitan area is because the average home price here is $750,000 to $800,000, and it's extremely hard for an investor to get their hands dirty and to really make money in the market that I'm in.
Yeah, sure.
So sellers here, the sign on their front lawn is almost like a vanity symbol. Like it's almost like the bag they're carrying or the shoes they're wearing. Like they want the sign in the front yard with the #1 brokerage like representative, right? Yeah. And so they want to put it on the open market, and they want to generate the most amount of interest possible and get the most amount of money. And because of that, I think it's going to be more difficult in certain markets like mine and like Tristan's. But I think in some areas it's going to work. And so my question is the idea of instant offers obviously generate seller leads, which would be nice, but is it to give the consumer more of a choice? Maybe someone's a little bit hard up. They need to get out immediately, and an investor purchasing their home might be the most streamlined way of having it happen. But like I said, well, like I didn't say, but what I want to say is I don't think that it's going to be for everyone, in the sense that there's a lot of people who don't like realtors, and they're never going to like realtors, and those people you can't change the mind of, and they're going to use the product.
I think that's a good point, and that's an interesting point. In that, so that also means, if that's true, and I think you're probably right, no realtor would have that listing. So it's not like this program would take a listing away from a realtor, because, as you just said, that person's probably never going to list with a realtor anyway. We don't know. That's one of the reasons that we're running the test. I agree 100%, and I don't think there's anybody here at Zillow that thinks that this will be widespread and appeal to even some significant amount of the home seller population. It doesn't. There's a reason that Open Door is operating right now in Phoenix, Vegas, and Dallas. Those places all have pretty low average home prices, right? When I was in Phoenix, now granted this was 5 years ago, the median home price in Phoenix was like $147K. Okay, so if an investor or wholesaler comes in and says, in a market where the home prices is much lower than yours and Tristan's, there's more room for them, right? I mean, they're going to come to a seller and go, we'll offer you, your home's worth $150 on the open market, we'll give you $135. And a lot of agents go, why the hell would any seller want to give up $15,000 in equity? That's probably not going to work in your market because you have a much higher home price. But in these low home price markets, there's lots of reasons that sellers might be willing to give up the equity. Me personally, I'm not leaving 15 grand on the table. I'm not leaving $1,000 on the table if I don't have to. But for the sellers that are in a position of, think of it, here's some examples. I don't know, you need a rapid sale for whatever reason and a known closing date. That has some value to some people, right? Maybe it's a foreclosure coming up and you're like, well, I can get out of this thing. I can short sale it, which we all know is going to take forever to do, and good luck doing it. Or I can let it foreclose, or I can put it on the open market, or here's a guy that'll give me, enough to at least where I can get the bank off my back. Maybe you're going through a divorce. I don't know. My first wife, if I had owned a home with my first wife, I probably would have given it away to an investor if it would have gotten her out of my life. Just being honest. So there's people, you never know what somebody's personal situation is, and they may need that known closing date, and some people are willing to sacrifice some equity for that. We don't know how big that market is. I don't think anybody here thinks it's very big, but there is still apparently a need for it in some markets, and we're testing it. We're going to find out. It may not work at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to bring up, Tristan, do you have any specific questions about
Can I explain for like 2 minutes
how questions here from the audience?
Explain how the instant offer process works, how it physically works on Zillow right now?
Go ahead, sure.
I'm having some internet connections here, so you go ahead, Nick. My internet's not the greatest.
Well, what I was going to say was, your internet's not the first. What I was going to say was, Tristan and I get a lot of flack because, we don't outwardly have issues with Zillow. We just don't.
Right.
I don't pay Zillow for leads. I don't rely on Zillow for my business, and my business is pretty successful, and so is Tristan's. So we get a lot of flack for not voicing anger and frustration because honestly, I don't really have that much. And so the thing is, technology is changing and real estate realm is changing, and it's changing every single day. And so when that changes, you have to be prepared for it. Now there's phone numbers for sellers to call to take their phone number off of lists that are being sold to Vulcan 7, Espresso Agent, the data companies. So there's always going to be something that's going to get in your way, and you're going to have to jump that hurdle. And so I look at the technology that Zillow's coming up with is just another hurdle, and for me to improve my value to my clients. It's interesting. This year, I have never worked with more uninformed buyers and sellers in terms of how the process is than in the last decade. People just don't know how to sell a house, and they don't know how to buy a house. And it's more prevalent in my business than ever. And as long as those people need to keep being informed, they're going to still need me. And Absolutely. So that's how I kind of but anyway, I want to say you were going to talk about how the instant offers process works, right?
Yeah,
we didn't get to that yet?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Is that cool? It'll take just a couple minutes. So I think it's important to understand what the consumer sees and what the agent participating in the program sees. Basically, my earpiece keeps falling out. Basically, it works like this. A homeowner looks up their house on Zillow, their own home. Here's a relatively common misperception. There's a lot of people out there that don't seem to understand that in addition to homes listed for sale, Zillow also has just about every home in the United States on Zillow. The vast majority of homes on Zillow are not listed for sale. So a homeowner goes to Zillow and looks up their own home, just goes in the search bar, types their address. On that page will be a button. This is in the 2 test markets right now. This says something like, and I haven't seen the button, but it says something like, are you interested in an instant offer on your home? Click here. So they click. And here's what happens. A bunch of forms start popping up. And they're forms to capture things like, how old are the appliances in the kitchen? When's the last time the roof was replaced? When's the last time the water heater was replaced? Do you know of any problems with the foundation? That type of questionnaire. So the point being, so that an investor or a real estate agent can come up with a reasonable offer if you're an investor, or a CMA if you're a real estate agent. The homeowner is also given an opportunity to upload photos. So they do that, and the homeowner is not under any obligation to accept an offer. They're not under any obligation to work with a real estate. They're not under any obligation at all. What they're going to get back within a few days is offers from 3 different investors that say, here's what I will buy your house for, and here's how much I'll charge. They'll also get a CMA from a real estate agent that says, this is what I think you can get for your home if you put it on the open market. Now, granted, and I've got a little bit of grief from some agents that say, how can an agent do a CMA without seeing the home? Okay, I don't know how it works now because I haven't sold a home in 5 years, but 5 years ago, I did a ton of CMAs sight unseen, and I would always put a little disclaimer in there. I'd say things like, this CMA is an estimate of the value of your home. Clearly I'll need to see the home so I can understand the conditions. I would always put a little, so I can give you a better number. It's like, this CMA is an estimate of the value of your home. Am I echoing? I'll need to see the home. I'm hearing a lot of echo.
Sorry, that was me. I apologize.
No problem. So I think it's possible to do a fairly good CMA sight unseen, especially if you have pictures. But you should put a disclaimer in that CMA that, look, until I can see the home, I can't tell you for sure what I'll sell for. So point being, seller gets 3 offers from an investor. They get a CMA from an agent. We think, again, we don't know because we're trying to test, but we think a lot of sellers, when they compare the investor offers to what the agent thinks they can get for the home on the open market, are going to be at least curious to talk to the agent if they don't go with the agent totally. We don't know. That's what we're going to find out. As we talked about earlier, a lot of these people may have some anti-agent thing in their head and they just don't want to deal with an agent. But it's pretty compelling when you get, I'm just going to throw some numbers out. These are random numbers that I'm coming up with. If I'm thinking about doing instant offer and I get offers of my home for 200, 215, and 220, or 700, 715, whatever the numbers are, and then an agent comes in with a CMA higher than those numbers, quite often lower in costs or expenses than the investor, we think a lot of sellers are going to go, okay, I realize I can sell it now and I can sell it really fast for X. If I talk to this agent and can sell it for Y, okay, maybe I talk to the agent. Maybe that delta, that gap between the investor offer and what the open market will get me, maybe that's worth the uncertainty and the hassle and the pain of listing my home. We don't know. The podcast I was on right before this one, literally right before this one, that Veronica Figueroa was on, did I say already that during that podcast she got a call from our concierge service about someone asking to send her the listing documents? So it looks like this is, at least in one instance, is going to turn into a listing for an agent. That's
so Jay, then this wouldn't be, because we got a question on this. This instant offers product isn't really a stepping stone for Zillow to move into removing the agent, right?
No.
Okay.
No, not even close. And that comes up a lot. And I'll be honest, I understand a lot of the agent angst out there. Again, I was one. My wife is one. But I fundamentally struggle with this. Zillow wants to eliminate the real estate agent argument. Okay. And I've thought of 100 different ways to say this, and I just don't know any other way to say it than there's no business in the history of the world that I'm aware of that's been successful with a strategy of eliminating their customers. And that's what people are saying we want to do. Really, here's what write as checks. Right, 70% of Zillow's revenue comes from selling advertising to real estate agents. Why in the world would we want to eliminate 70% of our customer base? It just doesn't make any sense.
What a lot of agents are concerned about is, I feel like there's a disconnect, and from what I'm seeing in the group, I feel like there's a disconnect between Zillow and the real estate agent. And that disconnect is that I don't know if Zillow, you're out there obviously, interacting with agents every day, but I don't know if there's enough of Zillow. Maybe I'm not seeing it because I'm not a paying customer, but I don't know if there's enough of Zillow putting themselves out there to convince the agent that, look, we're not trying to do this. We're not, like, there seems to be a difference of opinion between how agents feel about Zillow and how they feel about Realtor.com. For some reason, there seems to be, look, there's still disappointment with Realtor.com with agents, but there's a less, right? Sure. So why do you think that is? I'm just curious as to why.
It's a great question, and this is just purely my speculation. Well, it's not just speculation. It's based on my experience as well. Zillow was founded by two men, Rich Barton and Lloyd Frank. Rich Barton and Lloyd Frink are two of the most brilliant men I've ever met in my life. They also started Expedia, okay? Expedia.com. They were both with Microsoft. I don't remember the whole timeline. They were with Microsoft, founded Expedia, spun it off. But basically, Rich and Lloyd, the co-founders of Zillow, also co-founded Expedia. Okay, we all know what Expedia did to the travel agents, right? Put a ton of them out of business. The day Zillow launched, this was years before I started working for them, but the day, I could go back somewhere on Google and find an article, the day Zillow launched, where some real estate agent said, check this out, people. These guys that started Expedia and cratered the travel agency industry just started this real estate website, and they're going to crater real estate agency. That thought and that perception has held true for some for the last 11 years. I really think that's the difference, the big difference between attitude, opinion, whatever you want to call it, between Zillow and Realtor.com, is that the co-founders started a different company a decade and a half ago that severely impacted the travel agency industry, and people just assume that they're going to do the same thing to real estate agents. But we're not. I wish people could sit down for 30 seconds and talk to either Rich or Lloyd, the co-founders, or Spencer, or anybody here, and see that's not the case. I don't think, and here's the other thing, I think a lot of agents are afraid that they're going to be replaced by technology. Zillow has a big, giant audience. I'm not about to throw Realtor.com under the bus. I have friends that work at Realtor.com, okay, that I respect the hell out of. But the simple fact is, and they can't deny it, Zillow group websites have 3 times the traffic that Realtor.com has. We have a bigger audience. Therefore, it tends to instill more fear. I think there's a lot of agents that are just afraid, period, that they're going to be replaced by technology. And here's why I don't think they are, ever, okay? And I've said this, our CEO has said it countless times. I've linked to it, a video of Spencer saying this in LCA a dozen times too. A real estate transaction, first of all, it shouldn't be compared to buying a plane ticket, okay? Or a taxi ride, because a lot of people like to throw Uber out there as disrupting the taxi industry. Buying a home is a completely different experience than buying a plane ticket, taking a cab ride. Okay? I can buy plane.
Can I just say one thing? I'm glad you brought that up, because I made that point in the group the other day, in the sense that, like, if you consider yourself a really good real estate agent, and you're saying that taxis, that Uber replaced taxis, Amazon replaced bookstores, and Netflix replaced video stores, calling a cab, ordering a book, and picking a movie to watch,
that's not buying a house.
Those decisions don't reflect your entire life going forward.
Exactly.
If I make that purchase, if I pick a bad movie on Netflix, I just turn it off and watch another one.
Yeah, and it costs you $4 or $1.95 or whatever it costs.
Blockbuster was put out of business was because they weren't forward thinking. They didn't have to be put out of business.
Yep.
They did not have to be.
Yep.
And there were so many limitations to the consumer. I mean, I don't rewind a video and you charge me $5 for that or whatever it was. Like,
exactly.
You're a video store, do it yourself. But anyway, I think that, like, if agents are going to put themselves in those categories, you don't need someone to buy you a plane ticket. You can do it yourself. You don't need someone to book a hotel room. You can do it yourself.
Yep. Buying
and selling a house are probably the most nerve-wracking, complicated things you're ever going to do in your life. Not to mention, it's the most money.
Expensive. Yep. Yeah.
And by the way, just so everyone knows, I'm not defending Zillow. I'm just saying that those other things are not in the same category.
They're not even remotely close. And I'm not, believe it or not, as a Zillow employee, I'm not trying to defend Zillow. I'm trying to explain why I don't think real estate agents will be replaced by a website or an app. It's just what you said. Real estate is not a commoditized product like travel or a cab ride or a book or a movie. Real estate is too expensive. The transactions are too infrequent, they're too complicated, and fundamentally they're too emotional.
Too unpredictable, man.
To pull the human out of it. I can't tell you how many deals I kept together with duct tape and baling wire in a okay? there is not an app on the planet that's going to be developed that can talk a seller off the ledge at 10:30 at night, okay? Or that can talk to a buyer who just got some 45-page inspection report that shows that the home they want to buy is a piece of junk, okay? Because a light switch doesn't work. I had a buyer come to me with his seller report, and he goes, I want this, all these things fixed. And I'm looking through the list, I'm like, this is a cracked light switch, like this one right here, right? A piece of plastic that has a crack in it. You want the seller to fix it. It costs 22 cents at Home Depot, and it takes one screw. Don't ask the seller to do that. That's crazy. I'll do it for you, okay? I'll buy the damn thing for 22 cents, and I'll screw it into the wall for you. Problem solved. There's not an app that can do that, and there's not an app that'll ever do that.
It's two questions for you, Jay, in regards to kind of that. One is coming from the audience. It says the concern that I have. His name is Juan.
Yeah, I can see it.
Is that Zillow is going to change the customer base from agent to seller? That's a concern that we hear a lot. Can you explain that a little more so people can hear the difference?
I can try. Probably not. I guess it's a valid concern. I guess my question to Juan would be why? Why would we do that? We're on track this year. We think we're going to generate $1 billion in revenue. Billion with a B. That's pretty successful.
So that means you guys will actually be positive this year, then that's good. Right?
Yeah. That's a lot of revenue. There is, depending on whose numbers you believe or whose numbers you listen to, real estate agents spend somewhere between $10 and $14 billion a year on advertising and marketing. Trulia and Zillow combined make up about 4% of that spend. So, and please don't quote me on these numbers. If someone's going to go pull out a calculator and say it's not 4%, it's 6%, whatever. Okay, it's a very small fraction. Because that's the argument I hear a lot is people are like, there's not enough money for Zillow to make. They can make more money if they wanted to be a broker. They can make more money if they flip their customer base to the consumer. There is a huge untapped or available total available market out there for real estate advertising that we've barely scratched the surface of. There is so much room to grow in that space and so many things to do. We don't need to flip our customer base around. We're doing just fine, and there's plenty of room for growth for as far out on the horizon as we can see. So there's just, why would we? And that answer, I'm afraid that answer sounds flippant. Well, we're not. Why should we change? If you really think about it and you really analyze the business and you look at the numbers, why should we flip from what we're doing? What we're doing, love us, hate us, don't care about us, whatever. You can't argue with the numbers. Our financials, we're a publicly traded company. Our financials are posted to the Securities Exchange Commission and publicly every quarter. You can watch our growth. You can watch our traffic growth. You can watch our revenue growth. This is a very, very, very successful company on the track that we're on. There's really no need to flip it around or change it. It's doing great. Now, does that mean we're not going to continue to innovate? Absolutely not. Instant offers, it's a test. It's an innovation? I don't know. Time will tell. Maybe it is.
So with instant offers, does Zillow plan to charge a transaction fee, at least to the investor, if there's no agent involved in it?
Honestly, I don't think we've gotten that far in the process. Keep in mind, again, I'm going to keep harping on this point. It's a very small test in parts of 2 markets. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we don't know. We need to see the data first before we can start making decisions. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do all these plans, and say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this if the data shows that, or if the data shows this, we'll do this, this, and this. Let's wait and see what the data says. Then we'll figure out what to do.
Let me ask you a quick question. So, Tristan's mentioned a few times that, he's had clients where he's reached out because he got a Zillow lead and the Zillow, inquiry, whatever we want to call it. And they said, oh, yeah, I contacted Zillow because I want to see a home. Can Zillow show me the home, right? Or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. So do you think that some of your consumer base kind of already sees Zillow as a brokerage, even though they're not a brokerage?
I'm sure there's consumers that see that. Because let's face it, I think there's a significant amount of consumers that don't really understand the difference between an agent and a broker, or what a brokerage does versus what an agent does. Heck, there's a lot of consumers that don't get what an agent does, period. They think all you do is unlock the door and fill out a form. So yeah, I mean, there's clearly consumers out there that think Zillow is a real estate brokerage, but we're clearly not, right? We don't hire agents, we don't list properties, we don't represent buyers and sellers, we don't do any of the things that a brokerage does. But sure, there's no question that for a lot of consumers, there's a lot of fuzziness in what agents and brokerages even do. So there's absolutely confusion.
Yeah. So like, what do you? I personally have never come across that, but I guess Tristan has, and a couple other agents have. But I think that that's obviously a concern of a lot of agents, and I think that like another concern, just from what we're hearing in the group, is that I don't know if Zillow does. I don't know if they feel Zillow does enough to convince the consumer otherwise, right? So there's a lot of, they say on the website, always, we suggest using an agent, or we're not a brokerage, or whatever the fine print says. But I don't know if the fine print's large enough, or if the fine print is getting the message across to the consumer. Right. Is the agent is Zillow's consumer, right? But it's a consumer-facing site, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Right.
You want to traffic because you have customers that are advertising with you. So I understand that. So I think that like there's this confusion. I don't know if the agents think that Zillow is doing enough to tell the consumer what they really are. If you catch what I'm trying to make here.
That very well may be true. I think we do a lot. I know personally that it's extremely difficult to get people to read. And that doesn't, I don't care who you are. Clearly, a lot of agents aren't reading about instant offers, because if they were, they wouldn't be making claims like this cuts the real estate agent out, because it actually does a great deal to put the real estate agent into the transaction. So bottom line is, people don't read. Look, when I was an agent and broker, my blog was super successful. I had a ton of traffic, and I would have people that would call me all the time on a home that said clearly for sale, $350,000. My phone would ring, Jay Thompson's Realty, and they're like, yeah, can I rent that? I'm like, no, it's for sale. That's why it says it's for sale. But I just want to know if I can rent it. No, you can't rent it. I literally I knew enough HTML to where I could code. So right across the top of the listing, I kid you not, in flashing red letters, it said not available for rent. Flash, not available, can't rent. Guess what? The phone would ring and people go, can I rent this property? People just don't read. You can put the biggest, giantest, flashingest disclaimer on a website, and the bottom line is people won't read it. I'll be honest, I don't know what we can do to educate the consumer more. We do an awful lot of outreach. We have focus groups. We have tons and tons of content. Can we do more? Probably. Should we do more? Probably. We can't make people read. Nobody can, apparently. So legit feedback, and I love legit feedback. And believe me, I escalate all this feedback all over the Zillow chain. I don't use names, right? So
somebody emailed us a question from David. Did you get an email from David?
I didn't get a single question from David.
It's a very long question. I told him that it was a very long question, and I couldn't read it and listen to Jay at the same time. I can answer shorter questions because I can't do two things at once.
That's fine. I can't even read, so don't even worry.
So I want to say, like, going back to the agents being the consumer and being a consumer-facing site, do you think that agents then have a misunderstanding of Zillow, or is Zillow not conveying their message to them?
I think it's both. I think it's both. Clearly, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Just read through the threads, not just in LCA, but in any Facebook group. I get up usually at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I try to go for a walk, but I'm still have my face buried in my stupid phone. And so I start reading Facebook threads at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, you can't do that. You do that.
I know. It's not very healthy. But I see all the time, I can point you to 1,000 threads that agents don't understand how we get their listings. Okay, let's bring up the stopzillow.com website real quick. Okay, this big giant website that somebody put up, a coach, attorney, whatever he is in Scottsdale, puts the stopzillow.com website up. Okay, that website is full of so much factually incorrect information about what instant offers is that it's ridiculous. Okay, it is just wrong. Okay, but people read it and they believe it, or they don't read it and they just see the headline and they believe it. But coming out of this Stop Zillow, I'm glad the stopzillow.com site came out, because it's shown me what Zillow needs to do to help educate agents better about what we do.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if there's inaccuracies there, then there's a disconnect, right? Yeah. So Zillow's not putting the message forth.
Yeah. And that's something that we clearly need to work on. And a lot of that falls right on Jay Thompson's shoulder, right? Because I'm the director of industry outreach, so I need to be reaching out to the industry better. But you can clearly see it in how we get listings, okay? There are people that talk about Zillow using IDX feeds. We don't use IDX feeds. We can't use IDX feeds. We're not an MLS participant, and by definition, IDX can only be used by MLS participants. And that crap is really complicated. I served on NAR's MLS policy committee for 3 years, so I have a really good understanding, probably better than most agents, about the differences between IDX and direct feeds and this and that. And I get why agents don't understand it, and we will try to do better with that. But like this whole petition thing, the reason it's so nonsensical to me, if you don't want your listings on Zillow, the answer isn't to petition the NAR. Okay, first of all, the NAR can't do anything about it. Second, all you have to do is go to your broker and say, I don't want my listings on Zillow. The broker, Zillow does not display a single listing that the broker doesn't authorize us to display. Okay, so if your listings are on Zillow, they're there because your broker authorized them to be there. Talk to your broker if you want your listings taken off of Zillow.
That actually is true.
It's 100% true. Yeah. Personally and professionally, I think you should talk to the sellers as well. And I know that's where some grief comes in. Some agents will go, I have to put my listings on Zillow because the consumer demands it. Well, you know what? I'm not going to apologize for that.
Well, that's actually
we have built a brand and we built a market.
No, so that's actually true too. I mean, the consumer at this point, wants their listing on Zillow, and I as the agent want the most exposure for the listing as possible. This is a question that somebody had, and I'm going to paraphrase it because it's long. It's about instant offers. So if Zillow is trying to help agents and not trying to figure out how to work around them with instant offers, why didn't they come directly to the agent? And I actually have an answer for that, but I'd like to of what I think is probably right.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so the question is, he has an investor client, right, with over $10 million in buying power, and that investor client would love nothing more than to go to Zillow Instant Offers and buy homes. But if Zillow Instant Offers is there to help agents get seller leads, then why wasn't there something that was created specifically for that and not what they've created with Instant Offers? You know what I mean?
Kind of. First of all, we require the investor to use an agent, okay, and we can do that because we have a contract with the investor, right?
Okay. So
now, a lot of people miss this point, okay, including the StopZillow.com site. If you're an investor and you want to participate in instant offers, the way the test works right now, you have to use a real estate agent. We can't make the seller use a real estate agent. We're not under any contractual obligation with the seller, so we can't say, if you want to click this button, you have to use a real estate agent. But we do encourage them to use a real estate agent. We physically and with a human call the seller, and talk them through the process, walk them through the process, talk about the benefits of using a real estate agent. There's a lot that we do to involve the real estate agent in this instant offer process that is being completely missed by an awful lot of people.
So an investor actually has to use an agent to facilitate the transaction once they make an offer.
Yep,
I didn't know
that's correct.
You know that, Tristan?
Most people don't.
No,
it was buried in several of the Inman articles. which are too long and nobody reads.
But because nobody reads Inman articles. Come on, dude.
There you go.
I get those and I'm like, what? What? No.
I think it's in our press releases, which nobody reads, which I understand. But that's part of my job, is to try to get that message out there. That's why I'm sitting in this chair behind this funny orange wall right now, trying to get these parts of the message out.
Well, Jay,
can I answer a question real quick that came up early from the chat? Somebody, I can't find it now, but someone was asking if Zillow will ever, the way I interpreted this question was, will Zillow ever sell just Zillow leads and not include Trulia leads?
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
That's what Rob Lang was asking. The answer to that is probably not. And let me explain a little bit about Zillow's
Wait, hold on. Can you educate me on that? Is that like, are Trulia leads not typically as strong, or what's the?
That's a great question, and it's all over the map, because I talk to advertising agents every day and non-advertising agents every day, and I hear wildly varying stories. Some agents swear by Trulia and swear at Zillow. Some agents swear at Zillow or swear by Zillow and swear at Trulia. The one thing that we do know from analytics is the audiences are more different than we thought they would be. Before we acquired Trulia, which was a couple of years ago now, we were kind of under the assumption that most people probably go to multiple sites, right? One person's probably going to Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin, wherever they may go. We thought people went to multiple sites. As it turns out, the more we analyze the data, there is a significant separation between Zillow audiences and Trulia audiences. There is some overlap, but it's something like 40% of the visitors on either site are unique and only go to those websites. So there's no doubt in my mind that the leads could be different between Zillow and Trulia. I have tried and looked, and I know we've had people that are better with data analysis than I am, have looked at, is it a regional thing? Is it a price range thing? Trying to figure out the difference in quality between leads. And there's just so much noise in it that it doesn't appear to be regional or anything. I don't, why do some people go to Trulia instead of Zillow? I don't know. Maybe they like green more than they like blue. Trulia is fundamentally green. Zillow's blue. The user interface, whatever it is, but we really can't seem to nail down any pattern or specific reason why either Zillow or Trulia leads would be better or worse than the other one. And when we poll agents and consumers in the same market, we can't make anything out of it. But to answer Rob's question, I don't think we'll ever split them out, because the multi-brand strategy that we employ requires us to use all of them. And you can now add realestate.com into the mix. That's a third site that we've introduced into our brand. And a lot of people ask me, why does Zillow have multiple brands? Why didn't you just buy Trulia and kill it, and then more people would go to Zillow, right? Which kind of makes sense. And the analogy I like to use is this one. Think of hotels, right? You guys travel a lot. Not all agents do. But I think everybody's probably heard of these hotels: Ritz-Carlton, the Westin, and the W, okay? Those are three Ritz-Carlton's a luxury hotel. Westin and W are pretty high-level hotels. Yeah. What a lot of people don't realize is all three of those hotel brands are owned by Marriott, right? Marriott owns 22 separate hotel brands. Some of them are clearly Marriott hotels. You have Courtyard by Marriott. You have Marriott hotels. But you can't find the word Marriott on any marketing for Ritz-Carlton, Westin, or W, yet Marriott owns them. And that's part of that's what a multi-brand strategy does. Why don't we kill Trulia? Why would we? Because now we can have Zillow listings on page 1 of Google and Trulia listings on page 1 of Google. And soon enough, realestate.com listings on page 1 of Google. I don't care which site the consumer goes to. They can go to Zillow, they can go to Trulia, they can go to realestate.com, knock themselves out. So that multi-brand strategy is really part of what Zillow Group is. Okay, we were Zillow before we acquired Trulia. We became Zillow Group after the Trulia acquisition and introduced this multi-brand strategy, which is why I don't think we will ever separate those brands out or those leads out. Could that change? Sure. I mean, anything can happen, but right now the multi-brand strategy is probably going to stick.
So, Jay, quick question then in regards to just a Zillow group as a whole. It's a question from Janine Brown here. It says, curious, if you were working as an agent right now, would you pay for Premier Agent status?
That's a great question. I love that question. Here's the deal. I will freely admit, and I've published it on my blog in the past, I never gave Zillow a dime when I was a real estate agent or broker. I didn't need to be perfectly honest. They were selling leads. My blog was generating more leads than I could handle anyway. Why would I spend money buying more, right? I didn't need more. I knew fundamentally when I was an agent and a broker that Zillow could work. It worked on my own site, right? I knew the whole internet leads. People will find a website, they'll search for homes, they'll click a button that says contact an agent. You can then pick up the phone or email. I knew that internet leads could be converted. So there was no doubt in my mind when I was an agent and a broker that Zillow worked. Honest to God truth, and I know some people won't believe this, one of my biggest revelations when I first started, probably within the first month that I worked at Zillow, was how well it can work and how many people were insanely successful with it. And to be frank, how many people were spending insane amount of money on it. It surprised me because I didn't have that information as an agent or broker. I now have access to the sales system. I know what people pay. And I talk to them now and I know how well it works. Honestly, if I were to get fired from Zillow tomorrow, about all I have to go back on is real estate sales. And I love selling real estate. I wouldn't mind doing that most of the time. And to be honest, and all I can say is I'm being honest. This is the honest to God's truth. I said it earlier. I spent thousands of hours on my blog, right? Literally thousands of hours generating the content that generated the leads. Honestly, if I were to go back to real estate sales today, I could take all that time that I spent on that blog, give it back to myself, and buy impressions on Zillow and Trulia. I would do it because I know it works. I also know how to work it, and that's just as, if not more important. This is not a magic pill, folks. I wish we could come up with a product where you could just walk to your mailbox and get a check, and then go to the bank. Because if we could do that, we would be so filthy rich, but it doesn't work that way. You've got to work this system. And if you work it, I am 100%, I'm not convinced it works. I know it works because I talk to the people that do it. We have agents that spend thousands of dollars a month with us.
Well, Jay, I was
tens of thousands.
I was spending $15K a month with you guys, and it was great. I
assume you're a smart guy. You're not going to keep writing 15K checks if it's not working, right? I mean, it works. It works. So if I were to go back to real estate sales today, I think I would use Zillow, and not. It sounds weird, not for the leads as much as to free up all that time I spent on the blog. I don't think anybody should have one source of leads. I think it's a horrible idea. I had nightmares when I was an agent because my entire business was based off my blog. And I literally had nightmares where what if Google flips their algorithm and my blog goes from here down to here overnight? It can happen, right? You can get penalized by Google. Google can change their algorithm. I was relying on the search results for my blog to be successful. That's a really, really bad idea because I had one egg in one basket. When it worked great. But if it were to go south, it could go south really, really fast. So I don't think anybody should have one stream of leads. I told Zillow Premier agents that when I talked to them, and they're like, dude, I'm buying more zips. I'm all in on Zillow. It's all I do. I'm like, that's a bad idea.
Jay, good answer to that. I have a couple of people asking some support questions, and I don't want to answer them here. What's the 800 number for Zillow?
I don't know. I really don't know. And actually, the number's not the number. Even we do have a number. That's not what you want to call. This is an email address. It's Agent Care, AGENT CARE, agentcare@zillow.com. That is your best address. I'm going to leak something right now that is not a done deal. I want to repeat that. This is not a done deal. Not a done deal. I'm trying.
Hey, Jay, do you want to write it out so people can read it?
I want people to understand so they won't read it, that it's not a done deal. I'm trying to get an LCA, a lab coat agent's specific address for Zillow support. It'd be something like LCA support at Zillow.com. No promise, no promises.
I hope you have manpower over there for this.
Well, that's the key, and this is important. If I can get our support team to do this, this is not going to be something where you send in an email that says your Zestimate sucks. Okay, this is going to be for direct support issues. I can't log into my account. The open house time is wrong. I can't find my listing. Support, real support issues, not venting about Zillow. Because honestly, guys, I want to be open and honest with your audience. If I can get this dedicated email address for LCA, and if it turns into a vent and rant line, the plug will be pulled, right? Because we don't have the bandwidth in the people to do that. That's not what its purpose is for. But if I can get it, it will probably be on a small, limited test time, and we'll see how it goes. I think I can make it happen. It will not happen tomorrow. It takes an inordinate amount. Zillow can move very, very fast at times, and other times we move a little slowly. Doing something like this, first of all, it's very different and a little weird. So it takes a lot of persuasion on my part, which I don't mind doing. I think it would be good. I think it'd be good for us as a company. I think it'd be great for your group. I want to try to get that, but it will come with some conditions, and if it gets abused, the plug will be pulled.
Yeah, and by the way, I think it'd be really great for the group, and if anyone does abuse it as a rant and rave email address, before you guys pull the plug, can you let us know?
Yep,
and then,
of course, we'll totally work with you. And
someone has a great question.
We're not going to just wait for a reason to pull the plug. We'll absolutely work for you. But I just want to make sure there's a lot of ifs in there. There's a lot of maybes. It may not happen. It won't happen. It's probably several weeks away if it does happen. But
awesome, Jay. Here's one other question, and this one is an older question, but it keeps on brought up. It's about .loop. When you guys purchased .loop, a lot of agents got scared. They were saying that, now they're going to get into the whole transaction part of it.
Yeah.
What's the main reason for purchasing .loop, and how does it fit into the Zillow group?
Great question. Understandably, .loop has a lot of very personal is the right word, very personal information in it. Lots of very transactional data in it. So understandably, when we acquired .loop, we knew that was going to be a concern. But here's the deal. There are all kinds of written and legal data agreements between .loop and their users. Okay, Keller Williams is a big .loop user. Okay, Keller Williams and .loop have an agreement between them that the data can't be shared internally to Zillow. We are not about to violate those data agreements. First of all, it's just bad business to do that. Second of all, it just doesn't make sense because it's bad business. So we're going to honor those data agreements, not just because they're data agreements, but because it makes business and financial sense to do that. But here's the basic reason why .loop was acquired. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about how agents that are more productive and more efficient make more money and buy more advertising. .loop is really good software that makes agents more effective and more productive. Therefore, when they're more effective and more productive, they make more money and they buy more advertising. It really does loop all the way back around to that. It's a little bit selfish, okay? In some ways, we want agents to make more money so they buy more advertising. So that's why we acquired .loop. That's why we build a Premier Agent app to help agents manage their leads. A lot of that stuff, we don't have to do that. We could still sell the impressions. They're still there. But if we can sell the tools, or not sell, but if we can give and sell the tools and the systems and put those things in place for agents to be more successful, we know for a fact more successful agents buy more advertising. So that's really the bottom line.
This is the question here. I got 5 minutes. In the chat, you can't see it because it's in the Q&A on the webinar. Maybe you can, I don't know. Sandra Bolkar, she's actually an agent in my office. She wants to know, would there ever be a situation that Zillow can envision where they kind of go along the lines of a Redfin model where they make. Tristan, did you just take that question away? I was reading it.
Here. The Redfin, it's just a Redfin model. Do you ever see Zillow becoming like a Redfin type of company?
Like having Zillow partners, like Redfin. I personally don't even know how Redfin works, but I guess they have partners, right?
So they do. Zillow, I know very well how Redfin works because I used to be a Redfin partner agent when I was an agent.
Tristan, you were too, right?
Fundamentally, Redfin is a brokerage. It really is what they are. They are a brokerage with a very nice website that a lot of people use. They're headquartered in Seattle. So when I walk a lot, that's what I do for exercises. I walk. And I see Redfin for sale signs, which still to this day blow me away. It's just weird to walk up and there's a big giant for sale sign in the yard and it's Redfin. Or Redfin open house signs. I see them because they're in Seattle. They're headquartered here. The short answer is no. We don't want to be a brokerage. Our partners are our advertising agents, but Redfin is a broker. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They've got brokerage licenses. They hire agents. They represent buyers and sellers. Their partner model typically goes into play into either markets that they're about to enter or in lower price markets. It's basically a referral system is what that is. That's why I did it when I was an agent. The Redfin leads that I got were actually pretty good. We converted several of them. You got to jump through a whole lot of hoops to become a Redfin partner agent. You got to be agreed to be reviewed by every client, not just the Redfin referrals. And you have to give Redfin a referral fee, and you have to provide a rebate, a commission rebate to the buyer. So we did that. I closed a handful of transactions. A couple of my agents were Redfin partner agents and were very successful with it. But no, Zillow has no desire, none, to broker real estate, and Redfin is a brokerage. So
with that, here's what I've been thinking, and tell me if I'm right along the lines that Zillow is thinking. I think real estate agents view Zillow more like agents would view a company that does with real estate, like a brokerage. But I think they're missing the actual way that Zillow is. Zillow is more like a tech company, like Google, like Facebook, where if you look at both companies, their main money source is marketing, advertising, right? Yep. And Zillow, that's where you guys get all of your money, the advertising. Yes. Why would you? I keep on telling agents that freak out and say Zillow's going to just eat us all up. I think it's different, and we just have to really approach this and look at it like a Google and like a Facebook.
I think it's a great analogy. It's we are very similar to Google and Facebook, just basically isolated inside the real estate vertical. We are a real estate search engine. We make our money very much the same way Google and Facebook do, with advertising. That's a really good analogy, and it's really interesting because I don't hear people go, "Oh, Google's going to become a brokerage. Facebook is going to become a brokerage." No, they're not. I mean, I can't imagine why they would, and honest to God, I can't imagine why we would. Again, there's tons of space in the real estate vertical to be in the advertising, selling side of it, because that comes up a lot. People are like, you can make more money if you brokered real estate and got commissions. Yeah, and we could also take on all the liability in dealing with 50 different departments of real estate and all the crap that a real estate broker has to put up with. And believe me, I know, because I was one. I ran a brokerage. It is not an easy thing to do.
I mean, that's the thing that I think. Like, I think I think it would be extremely difficult and open up to a heck of a lot more liability. I mean, literally every state has different laws.
Yep.
And I just know that Zillow's not going to be running out to someone's house to on the day of closing because someone didn't leave the house broom clean like the contract said. Now you got to remove a couch that's in the middle of the friggin' room. I know Zillow's not. Anyway, I mean, I make light of it. But I want to just point out a really funny comment here. Someone said they just put down their Molotov cocktail because they learned a lot about Zillow through this webinar that they didn't know before. So they're not as upset. But they also want to know, because it's been a while since they went to the website to learn their position, where can they go to read up on Zillow and what Zillow's goal is in the real estate space? Where can they go to find more information?
If you want to learn about Zillow specifically, probably one of the better sites to go to is ZillowGroup.com. Now, a lot of people are familiar. A lot of people are not familiar with that, or probably don't even know that exists.
Yeah,
that's kind of the umbrella site for Zillow, Trulia, Realestate.com, StreetEasy, HotPads, all of our brands. There's a lot of media stuff in there, a lot of press releases, things like that.
That's good information.
Press releases can be boring to read, I understand that. But if you really want to get insight into what we're doing and kind of our forward path, read some of those press releases and read through the PR.
Do anyone have pictures?
You got to read. People don't read. But so ZillowGroup.com is a good one. Whoops.
Yeah, I'm showing people.
Yeah, thank you.
Naked Apartments. I didn't know that was a website.
Naked Apartments. I know what.
I know that's a New York City specific rental site.
Oh, cool.
StreetEasy is also a New York City is a. And I'm talking New York proper, the 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
That's a whole different planet when it comes to real estate. Completely just different environment.
All right, cool. So that's a good place to know. Go to ZillowGroup.com. Real quick, we're going to wrap up. Somebody wants to know, how do you get rid of spiteful or unfair or maybe inaccurate reviews that somebody left? Because you know how consumers can be.
Oh yeah. The best thing to do is flag the review. There's a literally a flag icon next to each review. That is the best way to do that. If you are a Zillow Premier agent, if you pay for advertising, you should talk to your business consultant, your sales rep. If you're not a Premier agent, then flag the review.
Last question, then Regina from our group, which you know, Regina has a good question. She says, how is Zillow going to do a better job of deleting the sold listings from Zillow?
Because sometimes listings show up as active even.
Yeah.
My mother recently had one of her listings show up like 6 months later, and the buyer started to get, all this stuff started working up, and house wasn't for sale. So how do we?
I think you're going to see that data get better. We just on May 1st eliminated manually entered listings, and I know that caused a lot of agents some heartburn. But the primary driver of that was listing quality, and the primary component of listing quality is what we call listing staleness. Okay, is a listing truly active? Is it truly pending? Is it truly sold? We get more and more MLS feeds every day, and that helps because we now have the capability of taking an MLS feed every 10 to 15 minutes. So if an agent goes into the MLS and marks a property as sold in as little as 10 minutes, that'll get over to Zillow and we'll mark it as sold. So as we get more MLSs on board with direct feeds and more franchises and more brokerages, I'm not going to sit here and say that problem will ever totally go away. I mean, let's face it. I myself as an agent have called on an MLS. I log into the MLS and call the agent and say, hey, I've got a client. We want to view your home tomorrow. Is it available for showing? And they go, oh, you know what? That went pending 6 days ago. I haven't gone into the MLS and changed it yet. They're still, and nobody can tell me that their MLS data is 100% accurate because it's not. It's very accurate. It's probably the most accurate data source, and it's kind of the gold standard. It being the MLS data is the gold standard of listing data. But MLS data has its own set of issues. For 2 years in Phoenix, now this was years and years ago, but for 2 years, there was a home in Scottsdale that was listed for sale that had 250 bedrooms or bathrooms.
Oh, I know that.
Bathrooms and 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, I know that.
Clearly a 2.5, but somebody entered it. They left out the decimal point. And in the MLS, for 2 years, this home showed as having 250 bathrooms. Okay, so MLS data is not perfect, but it's about as perfect as it gets. And it's clearly the first data that agents go to, the first place agents go to change status. That's why we want MLS listing data as much as we can get it. So to answer Regina's question, I think you will see that. In fact, I know it's already getting better. Our own internal metrics show that stale data or stale listings are dropping pretty rapidly.
I have an idea, and I don't know, this might be something, I just have an idea about Zestimates. So Spencer put out that contest, right? Who can change the estimate? And so the thing to me is all the comps are right there in the MLS, right? So when a house goes on the market for sale, you know, obviously sometimes it's not priced right sometimes, but it would be so great if an agent was able to enter the comps into Zillow that they use to price that home. I think that would be
That's interesting.
Take that into consideration. Like, okay, so this is our estimate, but here's the comps that the agent actually used. Let's put them side by side and see what we come up with.
That's interesting. Interesting.
It literally just came up with that. So I'll send you guys a contract, and you can.
We'll just write $1 million check.
You know, happy to help. Happy to help.
It was really good having you. We had a lot of great questions. I think we had some good breakthroughs. The group.
I hope so. It was good. It was good. And I'm going to drop my email address if you want to put it in the comment, or I'll add it in the comments later. First of all you have to do is click on my profile on Facebook, and my email address is there. But it's simple. It's JAYT@Zillow.com. Yeah, I've got people standing outside my room now.
The JAYT is JT at Zillow. I do just say, you know, for the most part, look, people were super. Look, we asked people to be nice. You can't look, Jay. Like Tristan and I know that you're a good guy. Like we respect you. You know, like we know that you don't mean any ill will towards anyone. And you know, and like I think that when people are so angry, right? Like you just can't think straight. And so we just wanted to honestly just have a conversation with you and bring up some points that agents have, and hopefully we answer some questions.
I hope so. It was good. I enjoyed it. Let's try to do it again sometime.
Let's do it.
I know we didn't get to every question because I can see some of the questions, but seriously, shoot me an email. Probably not today. I'll try to do it sometime this weekend. I'll go back through the thread on Facebook and answer some. You know, it's like some of the basic questions. How much does the realtor make with instant offers? They make whatever commission they charge. How much does Zillow charge the seller? Nothing. Zillow doesn't charge a fee. I'll go through and start answering those kind of questions.
Yeah, answer the questions. And honestly, like I think here's a little piece of advice for you. Just don't get wrapped up in in nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's hard.
Yeah.
I got to go because I got people wanting my fancy orange ball. So.
You loved it. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, guys, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jay.
I don't know how to hang up.
I mean, see you, dude.